Fingers and thumbs, right? Every thumb is a finger, but not every finger is a thumb. So every Daredevil Born Again is a Daredevil story, but not every Daredevil story is a Daredevil Born Again story. So this new Disney Plus Daredevil Born Again series may be a Daredevil story, but it ain't no thumb. Howdy, I'm Kurt Williams, and today we're talking about Daredevil Born Again. The new Disney Plus series is going to be 18 episodes split into two 9-episode halves, and the newest trailer for it came out, I think, about a week and a half ago. And this is after a total rehaul of the series. Kevin Feige took a look at what they were making before and said, nah. So we got new showrunners who totally rewrote a bunch of things, and they had to reshoot a bunch of things and splice in some of the old footage so it kind of made sense. There's new characters, new plot points probably. It's like a totally different thing, and the new trailer for the show just came out. Now lots of people are understandably very excited about this show because the Daredevil Netflix show was very good. And we've had a little bit of Matt Murdock showing up in Spider-Man and She-Hulk, but we're yet to see an updated, fully canon Daredevil series in the MCU. So hooray! New Daredevil content. But it's not Daredevil Born Again. Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli's 7-issue series from 1986 is one of the greatest comics out there. Not just Daredevil, not just Marvel, but one of the greatest comics out there ever. Miller and Mazzucchelli are masters of their craft, incredibly gifted artists, and I can't even begin to give a review on the series that does it justice. There's a really great video by Matt Draper that's an in-depth breakdown that goes through all the intricacies of this story, and I really recommend that video if you want to know more about the comic in particular. But for the sake of this video, I'll give you kind of a Cliff's Notes on the story. So it starts off, the whole thing is Karen Page, who you probably know from the TV shows, is at the absolute bottom. She has nothing to her name, she's hooked on all kinds of drugs. The only thing of value that she has left is the secret identity of Daredevil. So in a moment of weakness, she sells that information, and of course it eventually finds its way back to the Kingpin. Now the Kingpin is a careful, calculating guy. That's how he got into this position of power. So he double checks and he triple checks the information, and he starts just testing Matt Murdock to see what happens. And in the first issue of the story, Matt Murdock loses his girlfriend, all of his money, his job, and the bank is threatening to take away his house, but at the very end of the issue, his whole house just blows up. And at this point, Daredevil and the Kingpin know exactly what they're dealing with. So over the next 4 issues, Matt sinks lower and lower. He starts not trusting his friends. Everything that could possibly be taken away from him is taken away from him, and he starts to slowly lose his sanity. So he confronts the Kingpin, and the Kingpin beats the tar out of him, and then he puts him in a taxi cab and makes it look like Matt Murdock drove off a dock to kill himself. But Matt survives in a super cool moment, and then he's staggering through the streets, and eventually he collapses, and he's saved by Sister Maggie, who we find out is his mother, which you might remember from the Netflix show. And from there, it's a story of redemption. He has to rebuild his life from absolutely nothing. It's like he's born again because everything that was him is no longer him. Meanwhile, we have Karen Page trying to get away from everything terrible in her life, the drugs and the sex. She's trying to get to Matt Murdock so that he can hopefully forgive her for this terrible thing she did. Foggy is now dating Matt's recent ex-girlfriend, and Ben Urich, who is a very important character in this story, is having just a terrible time trying to figure out what is happening to Daredevil. By the end, Matt Murdock is figuratively reborn as Daredevil. He manages to defeat this crazy character Nuke, who's basically a super soldier from Vietnam who's part cyborg, and the Kingpin sent him to kill Daredevil in a last act of desperation. It's a whole thing. He's forgiven Karen in a very powerful moment, and they're living happily together. And even though Ben Urich and his wife both had their lives directly threatened by Kingpin, he has now learned the real cost of what it means to be a man without fear. And in the middle of all of this gorgeous insanity, there's so many religious references. Like when Matt stumbles 3 times as he's walking through New York, that represents the 3 times that Jesus fell on his way to Golgotha. This image of Sister Maggie finding Matt is a direct reference to a statue of Mary with Jesus. This image basically shows Matt as if he's being crucified, and the way that the room is laid out makes it look like he's on a cross. And there's even more symbolism and cool references throughout. It's just super neat. Grade A storytelling, I tell you what. So basically, it's worth reading is what I'm saying. Now, from what we can see in the trailer that was released recently, the show is gonna have none of that. So in the Netflix series, we had Daredevil at his lowest, right? When he was being taken care of by Sister Maggie. That's after a building fell on him and Elektra, I think, and he was out of action for a while. And that was like the tiniest taste of Born Again. It didn't really have the power. It didn't have the historical significance to it. What we mostly had in the Netflix series was references to Frank Miller's earlier run in Daredevil, where he introduced Elektra. We played with Bullseye a lot. We had Punisher in there a lot. We had The Hand. So overall, the Netflix series were just kind of a general sampling from all the great Frank Miller material. But in this new series, based on the trailer, it looks like we'll be dealing with Kingpin's rise to Mayor of New York, which is a thing from the comics. That was in Charles Soule's run a couple volumes ago, and that was okay. I would call myself a fan of Charles Soule. I liked his work on Death of Wolverine with Steve McNiven, and I really liked 8 Billion Genies, but his run on Daredevil kind of failed to capture my interest. But anyway, that's what it's referencing. Kingpin's run for mayor was a thing in the comics just a few years ago. We also have the characters Punisher and Bullseye thrown into this, which seems more like an earlier Miller storyline reference. It definitely has nothing to do with the Born Again storyline from '86. Also, in the MCU, I'm pretty sure Ben Urich is dead at the time of this series, so we can't have his subplot. Karen Page is doing fine, so maybe she'll take the place of Ben Urich, but we're not going to have the original sin that started out this whole problem for Daredevil. That probably means we won't get Daredevil at his lowest, which means we probably won't get Sister Maggie, which means we probably won't have this big redemption arc. From the trailer, all we can really see is that there's some kind of gang war going on to fill a power vacuum in New York. So hooray, we get to see these characters that we like, played by actors that we like, but who knows what the narrative is going to be. From the trailer, I saw what looks like maybe a ninja, which could be Elektra, or maybe the Hand, I don't know, neither of which were in the Born Again storyline. And I've heard that this character Muse might be involved based on some set photos, and I really don't get into set photo stuff because I don't want any spoilers. I want to be pleasantly surprised when I see the show. Muse is a relatively new character. He's like a serial killer mixed with a graffiti artist. Is kind of okay. I collected the few issues that he's in, but he's not very memorable to me, so I don't know, I'm not that excited about it. So to wrap all this up, Daredevil Born Again is one of the greatest comics of all time for a bunch of reasons, and this show that's coming out next year doesn't look like that. So why is it called Daredevil Born Again? Why is this finger masquerading as a thumb? It's probably gonna be good, don't get me wrong. Daredevil content is good most of the time, but I can tell you already, it is not Daredevil Born Again. So again, I absolutely encourage everybody to read Daredevil Born Again. It's one of the greatest comics ever. I love it. Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli kill it in this series. It's like their best work. And after you read it, go watch that video by Matt Draper because it really deepened my appreciation of the story. And I guess we'll see about the show. Honestly, I did not like Echo very much, and if this is going to be anything like that, then maybe I won't like it. Let me know what you think about the upcoming show. And if you read the comics, what did you think?